Welcome to today's interview. I've brought on Nicole Kerr. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, Heather.
Please give listeners a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
I live in a small town called New Bern, North Carolina, and I just moved here from Hawaii. So I've been in Oahu for almost 20 years, where I met and married my husband. So it's a big change, but I love North Carolina. The people here are so nice, and I love being on the Neuse and the Trent River. So it's kind of like a little Hallmark town. It really is, with a lot of history. And what do? I'm into my vocation now, which I'm so grateful for, that I don't have to work in terms of an occupation. I've been in the wellness industry my entire life as a result of my near-death accident. I have been wellness directors. I've worked at the Centers for Disease Control. I've worked for the American Cancer Society. I've been an oncologist, dietitian. I've been privileged to do a lot of different types of work in a lot of different sectors. I've had my own private business consulting eating disorders and NET, which is neuro-emotional technique. I'm a certified trainer with that, and energy medicine. So I am just... I have a lot of different tools in my toolbox to try to help people, but right now I'm taking a hiatus, and I am working on promoting my book that I just released 6 months ago called You Are Deathless.
I love this. Can we, because you mentioned that before we started recording, but the idea of a vocation versus an occupation. And before I ask you that, I literally saw a video this week, this guy sharing, and I was like, damn, he's on point. He's like 99% of Americans are going through life's motions, chasing this dream of working for, the 9 to 5, which is why I walked away in 2017. I was like, the American dream was not my dream. But this guy was sharing 99%, I don't know the stat, but his was 99% of people are going through the motions, working this career, this job for 50 years, and then until they can retire and live 10, maybe 15 years to enjoy what's left. It's like that was somebody's idea a long time ago. Why are people, you said it, something about, how did you say the amnesia?
Spiritual amnesia, which means we forget who we really are. We've had so many different filters put over us. I call it crap that's been thrown over you by authoritarian figures, by your parents who are role models, by your school teachers, by culture, by society, by religion. It's all imprinted, and you have forgotten, along with the rest of us, who we really are, which is our soul essence. And we are love, we are light, we are beauty. And we have gotten into judging ourselves. I mean, how many of us, especially women, are judging ourselves? Oh, I'm not thin enough. Oh, I don't look like, the American ideal of beauty. You judge your thoughts, you judge your emotions, you judge your presence. And if we could just get out of judging ourselves, that would help us so much in terms of being able to love ourselves. Get that should word out of your vocabulary, because should is shaming. Bottom line, nobody should you, and you don't should anybody else.
There's a meme out there that says, stop shoulding all over yourself. And I couldn't agree more. Like, I took the woulda, coulda, shoulda, take that out of your vocabulary. Because you're right. Like, when somebody says, well, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, I ask them, how does that feel?
Yeah.
Something else you mentioned, I should have written it down. But anyway, I love the idea of that spiritual amnesia. For me, Disney, if people watch Disney from an adult perspective, Disney has such deep meanings.
Yes.
And for me, Lion King, which is kind of what you're talking about, I remember, the scene where Simba's looking in the pond and he sees his reflection, and Mufasa comes out of the clouds in the sky and says, remember who you are. And like, he remembered and went back and took over Pride Rock, right? But it was all that fear-based.
Yes. And we have become a very fear-based society. And with COVID, it really amped it up. And now with all the political division and the hatred, it's really amped that up. The school massacres and all massacres have amped it up. And the other thing that I talk about in my book is when I had my near-death experience, when I remembered 19 years later going to the other side, one of the two messages I was given was to tell people not to be afraid of death. Okay. And there's so many reasons for that. And in our culture, most books that are written, death itself is cloaked in this veil of doom and gloom, and it's this cloud of depression and negativity upon it. And that is simply not true. Me and hundreds of thousands of other people who have had near-death experiences will tell you that death is absolute beauty. It's light. It's what do I say? Loving kindness, unconditional loving kindness. And I have taken those two lessons plus the 10 common NDE lessons from the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And I have based that as the chapters of my book. And the first one is we do not die. Yes, our physical body died. When I was lifted up to the other side, I could see my corpse when I looked down there. I was in the ditch. I was dead. Okay. And that is going to, deteriorate. And what happened was my energy body opened up and my soul went up, and it went up to a space, a state. And I could hear I wasn't in my physical body, but I could hear other beings, angels, talking. And one of their messages was, you have to ask us for help. These are the angels talking to us here in the human form on earth. They are not going to interfere in our lives because of something called free will, unless we ask them. So they will interfere if it's an emergency situation like it was with mine, but we need to get in the habit of starting developing a relationship now with the spiritual realm. We all have a guardian angel, at least one, and to start dialoguing and start trying to understand that we really have nothing to fear. And I talk about this. That's why I wrote the book, You Are Deathless. And because we are. Our soul goes on for many, 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 many incarnations.
So for me, I understand this might be a radical perspective, but like I shared with you, Abraham Hicks kind of makes light of death and calls it, they croaked. For me, right. I think of it more as an expiration date. We know that's part of the human experience, right? We know yes. that. And I truly believe that we are spiritual beings, that we come from oneness. The saying and more of a science angle is that all energy is never created nor destroyed. It's only transformed. So if we truly understand that we are energetic beings living in an energetic universe, but I understand that's a radical paradigm shift. And then my whole thing is like, I'm truly not afraid of death. I know it's going to happen, but I don't want to be so fearful that I never live.
Yes. And that's what happens when they're unconsciously afraid of dying. And a lot of it has to do with your beliefs about God, because that shapes your relationship to death. So if you grew up in a religion where God was presented to you as duality, he was loving, he was kind, he was there for you. But on the other side, you had the set of rules. And if you didn't obey the rules, then you were a sinner, you were bad. God was punishing, he was vengeful, the wrath of God was coming on you. And what you learn is that God is external, and that you would go to this place called hell and burn forever. And for kids, especially that take things literally, that concept terrifies the wee out of you. You do not want to be separated from your family. So it's really important that that fear gets embedded in you really early on. And unless you really work with yourself to have a spiritual transformation experience, that belief system is still running around in the back of your mind somewhere, running the show. Oh, you better not do this. You're going to be a bad girl. And that's when I died at 19 years old. And that's the other thing I want to tell your audience. We could die any moment. Okay. There is no guarantee that we're going to die, when we go to assisted living or anything that will make it to 80 or 90 or whatever. And I think you have to be prepared for that. I know you have to be prepared for that, because when I was 19, of course, I was a cadet at the U.S. Air Force Academy. I felt I was immortal. Nothing was going to happen to me. And that's the way the driver of the car felt, who happened to be drunk. And then you realize, oh my gosh, it does. It happens to the kids at Sandy Hook, 10 years ago. They were just little 6-year-olds, So we have to live with this uncertainty that we could die any day. So we need to start preparing our spirituality and our soul connection and our spirit connection, and start developing that. Yes, we are human and we're spirit, but we in the end transfer to the spiritual realm. And if you think about that with breathing, when you go out on a cold day, you see the breath. Okay. Everybody's breath is the same color, right? There's nobody breathing red or orange or anything like that. But that is what escapes, that breath. And that is the energy that you are talking about. And we are all connected. Everything and everyone is connected. And I so hope that our society, the world, can figure this out and quit being so divisive and judgmental and negative, because you are connected to me, I'm to you. And you can tell people that have a negative energy. You can read it, especially if you're good at reading energy, you'll read it right off the bat, Yeah. And so it's important that we look at our own selves and we take responsibility for our own spiritual development, and not put it off on, oh, well, God just meant for that to happen, and excuse it. No, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Okay, here's what I want to talk about. The idea of free will. But before we get there, ultimately, here's what I wanted to share. This was top of mind. I literally, and this is why I love, synchronicities, serendipities. I don't believe anything is happenstance. I believe everything, like you said, is connected. We are not victims. We are creators of our reality. But I literally posted something this morning on social saying that, like, you woke up today. What are you going to do with this gift? And I think I embody a daily gratitude practice. It's something I literally learned when I was 8 watching Oprah, and something I've done since I was 8 years old. Every night before I go to bed, I think of at least 5 things from the day for which I am grateful, because that is a choice, right? That's an intentional practice to focus on the good in our life, so that we don't fall to fear, so we don't fall to worry, because whatever you think about, you bring about. But on that note, I 100% agree. The saying, I think last year, was the Great Awakening. Humanity, there are so many, I truly feel like millions of people leading the way at this point. We are waking up from the fear and the limitations. I think COVID was a beautiful gift to see how powerful fear is, but also to stand back and be like, none of that made sense. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, can we talk about free will?
Yes. What do you want to know about it?
Well, just like, what is it, and what does that mean for our human experience?
Well, free will, in my opinion, means we have a choice. Yeah. So the creator of everything has given us a choice. We don't all have to choose the same thing. And so some people choose to get drunk and take the risk to drive. Okay. And if they do that, then there could be consequences for other people. And that is the we all have the free will. Okay. And sometimes it's just a matter of, oh boy, somebody chose a really bad behavior. They chose something wrong to do, wrong in, societal's mind, I guess. And then it intersects with someone who doesn't have that belief system, or who didn't do that. And then it causes a collision. And God is not responsible for that collision. And that's what I want people to understand, is because we get these choices to make, our own decisions, we have to go with the consequences that come with them. And that's why we come in, is to learn these lessons, and so it's really important that we understand that, and we don't go around blaming God or somebody for causing that, because in my experience with an NDE, God is love. Period. an energy. That's the end of the sentence,
Yeah.
you know, and it really, and prayer is an energy. Okay. When you get people, think about that guy that was playing football recently for the Buffalo Bills. Okay, that's the first time that I remember in a long time where people actually, his mates got down on the field on a knee, took a knee, and were praying. People in the stands were praying because what they were witnessing was somebody that was dead or dying, and they were being brought back to life. You know, so that is energy, and that works when the intention is going for the highest and greatest good.
Well, and there's tons of studies out there that literally show. I was listening to something on YouTube the other day that, you know, generally speaking, and this is a belief, that crime and stuff is higher in the summertime. But there was this specific, and I don't know the name of the town, it doesn't matter, but a specific area of the country that a group of people came together and did daily meditations, and the crime rate subsided. As soon as they stopped the meditations, the crime rate went back up. And that is the power we all have, that we can come together. You know, Dr. Joe Dispenza does this through what he calls coherence healings, and people coming together, and you can do it remotely, but having a visual of somebody, and it is sending energy, sending
Yes.
so much love, and that is what like eradicates all of this funk that we're in. But something that came to mind, which you shared about the idea of choice, and I wrote it down: whatever you are not changing, you are choosing.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we offer to people, because I know you've been in the wellness industry, and we all have habits. I don't want to judge them, but good or bad, right? Healthy or sabotaging. How would you offer somebody who is living very fear-based, and we want them to know there's another way?
Well, first of all, I will tell you that most of your habits are unconscious. You are only running around with about 1 to 5% consciousness.
Right.
So a lot of this is unconscious, that when you get stressed out and you get triggered present day by something and you can't figure out what it is, you're going to revert back automatically, because this part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, gets hijacked by the amygdala, those two little almond-shaped organs back here. And that's that fight, flight, freeze, fear that just comes in. And this thing goes, whoop, because this has the power. Okay. So you are right back in whatever situation, trauma, experience, negative experience that you never resolved on an emotional basis. And that is what you have got to have help figuring out, or what are those unconscious belief systems that are now sabotaging you. And there are many tools. I do NET, but there's tapping, there's EFT, there's all kinds of things. But I can't say enough about where we are right now as a society and needing emotional healing, because most of us grew up with 4 basic emotions: mad, sad, glad, and bad. A lot of us were taught, don't go hurt your mother, don't get your dad angry, you know, all these don't messages. So what did we do with those feelings we were having? We stuffed them. Okay. So they're sitting in our organs. The Chinese figured this out a long time ago. Your liver is holding all that anger. Okay. So, you know, it's different. Your small intestine, you know, is your vulnerability and your abandonment issues. So when we feel, we heal. We've also heard that. And if you think about it, the word heal has a common origin with the word whole and holy, pointing to the relationship between body and spirit. So I look for us to be whole, not necessarily well, because healing is not a linear process. And I used to think if I did A plus B, I would equal C. And if I did all this work, then this should happen. And it wasn't playing out that way. But I will tell you, the emotional realm, the stress causes so many of the physical eases that we have. Yep. And you have got to start working either with somebody or I mean, I had to work with somebody to do this because I can't figure out my own unconscious realm there, what's going on. But they're belief systems that you inherited or that you that have been playing in your life that are sabotaging you from having what you really want in life. And as soon as you can become aware of it, you can't become unaware of it. And then you start changing the behavior.
Okay, several notes I took down. And I love, thank you so much for bringing up the emotional side of it. I love the idea that like our body is a check engine light. When
Yes.
we have a pain, a chronic pain, chronic headaches, stress headaches, knee problems. I love Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And the back of the book is a glossary of all these things. And it's all emotionally based. But look, our society and our cultural paradigm programming has been to band-aid symptoms.
Yes.
And we're offering, you got to deal with the root cause. I talk about this often. Anyone who listens to the podcast knows I talk a lot about subconscious mind. You got to pull the weeds and plant new seeds.
Yes.
I have to share this quote, and I do share it often, but I love him. Peter Crone. And his quote is, when we talk about triggers, right? So that people and circumstances come into our life to reveal where we're not healed.
Mm-hmm.
We're not
exactly
victims. Right. Like those people, think of this as like, I love the idea that, you know, this is our movie. We are the main character. We are the writer, producer, author, director. And those people are coming into our life playing their role.
Yes.
So we're not to be mad at them and judge them and hate them and all of that. It's like, no, they came in and our human experience because we got to release it, right? You got to feel it to heal it. What was the last thing I wrote down? Oh, I love this. So there's a meme out there, right? Like you can do yoga, eat vegan, drink the alkaline water, but if you don't deal what's going on internally, your mind, your emotions, you're still unhealthy.
Yeah, well, you need to be in alignment. And that's why it's so important that a lot of us get chopped off right here. Okay. And that's the thinking part of us, the intellect. We want to intellectualize the emotion. Oh, yeah, I should be really mad, even rageful at this guy for killing me, you know, in this automobile accident. But it doesn't get through to the rest of my body. It cuts off right at my throat and it doesn't get embodied. So there's a lot of work now talking about embodiment, you know, that you have to embody the emotions to truly feel it in order to heal it. You can't think it. Yeah. Okay. And that's where you got to get the mind out of the way. Yeah. And that's hard. And it's if you're not taught to feel and let your feelings be expressed and be honored, it is really difficult to change that because we are in our society and in our programming, we are rewarded for what the mind can do, you know, in terms of performance and appearance and all this kind of stuff. So you got to really start connecting the mind with the body, with the spirit, with the soul. Then you're in alignment. And that is where you stand your ground and you are in your power.
Preach. And that's what I call the trifecta. And you know what? Like I have so much compassion and empathy for men specifically because they are taught, you know, boys don't cry, don't be a girl. And I work with a lot of very successful exteriorly men who are living in so much guilt, shame, anger, and don't know how to feel it, which leads to so many other things. And you're right, like it's uncomfortable. Dispenza calls it sitting through the fire of discomfort because and those emotions can be uncomfortable, which leads to our numbing agents, right?
Yes.
Food, drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping, you name it, scrolling on social, we distract ourselves. But guess what? I love this. And again, something I posted this week. You can't outrun you.
Yeah.
What is something you would offer? Because I love to give a takeaway. What is something you can offer someone who's listening to this and is like, okay, I know I got to feel it to heal it. Where do I start?
I would say you start by looking for help. Ask your angels for guidance. They will give it to you. Look under neuro-emotional technique, see if you can find a practitioner near you, or, EMDR or something like that, which gets at the subconscious. Okay. Because talk therapy does not do that, unfortunately, in my experience. Then I would tell you, start looking. Take something like, if you're afraid of dying, or you've had a lot of death recently and you are getting stuck in the grief process. For some people, they have something called soul loss. And if you have been traumatized and you are stuck, you may need to reach out to a shaman and do something called a soul revival. Okay. Because when something happens like that, your soul fractures, and it does that in order to self-protect. But if you don't get those fractured pieces back in, you are wide open, and in terms of your soul and your energy, and you are going to be in that fight, flight, or fear most of the time. So there's lots of different tools that I mentioned, but in my book, I also have a fear checklist. I'm anxious about the way I will die. I fear the pain of dying. And I also have a suggested book club questions. And can you imagine taking this book and going to a book club and starting to ask each other about death and what their beliefs are? And how does, wouldn't that be amazing if people could start talking about it in the open, and what they feel and what they believe and why they believe it? Because when I ask people to identify what their concept of God or source or whatever you want to call it is, many people have a very difficult time putting it into words. They really don't know. So that would be a great discussion to just get with other people and get support on that. And I just did a book club. They've been together 6 years, and I had the leader tell me, I did not even know I didn't know any of this about these women. This was an intimate, sacred experience for us to talk about this, because it's just kind of this forbidden topic that we're all going to deal with as families. We really don't need to talk about it with other people. But, one of the other lessons that we have learned is we're not judged. And that is so important, because we are our own worst critics most of the time. But I wanted to tell you, when I was on the other side, in that state, it was not that I had suddenly been forgiven for my mistakes, but they just no longer existed. Nothing I had done on earth was being weighed and measured. It was simply the way my story had played out in one realm. And I just want people to remember that it doesn't matter on the other side, mistakes or messes or any of that. You're not being weighed and measured.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately what I take away from that is, like, we don't have to do this alone. You are not alone.
No.
And ask for help. Ask for
Yes.
guidance. I love that.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, because we've touched on many different things. What do you believe is a key takeaway you want listeners to get?
Well, it's the title of my book. I want you to know that this isn't the end of your life. That you don't need to be fearful of death, because what happens at death is beautiful. Deceased loved ones are going to come in, your deceased pets, angels, they're going to guide you over, just like a midwife or a doctor guides you into coming into this earth. You're not alone. You're never alone. And the spiritual realm is a relationship, though, that you have to spend time getting to know. And it's different for every single one of us. But I want you to know you need not fear death. And I just can't tell you, I didn't want to come back. And then I was at 4 months in the hospital, and I had 2 code blues. So I tried to get out of here again, because I just didn't want the pain and the suffering that comes with learning the lessons that we need to learn here. But I am here to tell you today that life is beautiful. And if you're in fear, you're not going to truly live it and love it and appreciate it. And we need to take care of one another, respect one another, all sentient beings, and Mother Earth.
Well, and I love how Dr. Bruce Lipton says, we can create heaven on earth.
Absolutely.
This can
Yes.
be an amazing experience, but it's going to take all of us. All right. I'd love to wrap up the interview, so I have a few rapid fire questions.
Okay, go for it.
What is a quote or motto that you live by?
A quote or a model. Let's see. A quote or a motto that I'll live by. Oh, that's a really good one. I have a lot of them. I mean, every day. What am I grateful for?
Yes. Gratitude is the best attitude. I used to have that
Yes.
written on my
Yeah.
whiteboard at work.
Yes. Yeah.
What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Mad Honey. And that is Jodi Picoult. It has nothing to do with self-help or anything like that. Sometimes I just need a total break from all of that kind of stuff, because I'm out promoting my book and have read all the near-death books. So I took a break and I just finished that one and the one she did before on COVID. She's one of my favorite writers, but this was on transgender and relationships with that. So I just finished that 2 days ago.
All right. Final question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, I would give my younger self, she didn't know who she was. She listened to her father and she believed everything that he said was truly for her best interest, and that I never individuated. And I'm so sorry that I never did. And to please forgive me for not trusting her and for abandoning her and going the way that my father said was best for me, because that's what killed me.
Fair enough. Nicole, thank you so much for joining me today and having this conversation.
Oh, Heather, it's been a delight. I really enjoyed it. And I hope it helps your audience.